Hi, thanks for joining us on this webinar. My name is John Dwyer and I'm going to act on your behalf with a whole bunch of questions here in front of me, and I'm going to ask the questions that you'd probably want to ask, being a business owner, of this gentleman here. Ed, can you please tell everyone who you are and what you can do for them?
Thanks, John. Yep, my name's Ed Austin Woods. My business is My HR Specialist, and we specialise in protecting business owners from being sued by their staff, whether that's relating to issues such as sexual harassment, bullying, inappropriate workplace behaviour, or even when you need to terminate someone in difficult situations.
Thank you, mate, because that's pretty serious. I know that owning a business myself, these are things that I just haven't thought about over the years. It just tends to be that thing that you're pushing the bottom drawer and you don't think about. How many business owners, as a percentage, do you believe, who might be doing a few $100,000 turnover up to millions or tens of $millions worth of turnover, what percentage of them just ignore this?
Look, I think most people have at least some level of protection there, some level of documentation, but generally it's not very good, and they haven't proactively thought about it. They generally, because obviously it's very difficult running a business, there's lots of red tape, there's lots of different things you need to think about, and the last thing you really want to think about is being sued. Yeah. And also, a lot of people don't understand that being sued by an employee, not only can it wreck your business, but it's highly stressful, and it can also go into your family life and completely disrupt your life to the point where you have trouble sleeping at night, you have depression, anxiety. It's one of the worst things that actually can happen to a business owner.
Gosh, you know what, when you're going through that depression, anxiety, not being able to sleep at night, I've got all of those things and I haven't yet been sued. So where would my life end up if I got sued? I'm only joking, I'm not really depressed. Ed, can I ask you this? There's been a few big legal cases in the media in the last few years, which are pretty scary ones. Can you just snapshot that?
Sure. I guess the recent trend is about sexual harassment in the workplace, particularly with the Harvey Weinstein case that came out, Don Burke, Craig McLaughlin. That's really put a whole lot of new level of visibility over sexual harassment in the workplace. So business owners need to be really focused on making sure that they have the right policies and procedures in place, and that their staff understand what's acceptable and what's not acceptable in the workplace. Because what tends to happen is if one employee is sexually harassed by another employee, that employee doesn't sue the employee who's doing the harassing. They will generally try and sue the business owner because the business owner hasn't provided them with a safe system of work.
Gotcha, so therefore it's the business owner who cops the rap.
Absolutely.
We'll get back to the other things, bullying. I mean, it wasn't just sexual harassment that you look after. It isn't just sexual harassment, it's bullying, it's unfair dismissal and all that. So we'll get through that in just a moment, but so we can cut to the chase so whoever's watching now can know what you can do for them. What do you do in terms of protecting? You've got a series of programs where you can actually help them with a template, and then you've got another program where you can get in and help them in a much more customised way. Can you run through that?
Yeah, sure. So we've got 3 levels of program depending on each person's level of comfortability and how much they're actually able to spend. At the lowest end are some templates that we're able to provide people. They're my intellectual property, and business owners would then fill that in with some clearly written out instructions that I help them with. That's the lowest level of protection, but at least you've got something there that's good. You've got your contracts there, you've got your business agreements, you've got your policies, and you've got your procedures. And that goes a long way to helping. The second level of protection is that I then go in and customise these documents to your particular workplace and tailor them to your particular needs. The third tier and the top tier is a yearly membership fee where you get private coaching, mentoring by me, and specific advice on issues that you're dealing with.
Okay, look, and I thought that's best to bring up just now because at least whoever's watching this, depending upon the size of their business and their budget for protecting themselves, you've pretty much got a bronze, silver, gold sort of option.
Basically, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Now, let me ask you, aside from sexual harassment, which because of the Hollywood thing has certainly had a lot of media exposure, tell me, bullying, unfair dismissal, go through the other things that we as business owners should be protecting ourselves against.
Well, unfair dismissal, most people I'm sure have heard of, and that's a really key one because, and it's a very difficult one to navigate because not only do you need a valid reason to dismiss someone, and I won't get into too much of the legal jargon, but you've got to do a whole lot of other things around that as well. You've got to be procedurally fair about it, and then you've also got to take into account that person's particular circumstances, whether they've got a family at home, whether they are able to get a job moving forwards. So that all gets rolled into an unfair dismissal. So if someone thieves from you and
You mean like
steals money from you, and you don't take into account, if you don't give them procedural fairness and you don't take into account their personal situation, you'll be done for an unfair dismissal, believe it or not.
Wow.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Shocking.
So even though, let's just go through that because that is shocking. And I'm not doing that whole wow thing because it's theatrically the best thing to do when you're doing a webinar. I haven't heard of that before. It is a genuine reaction from me and probably from you. Wow, come on. They stole, I don't know, $1,000 from my business, and you're saying that I could be blamed for unfair dismissal because I sacked them.
Yep. If you didn't give them a proper opportunity to respond and you didn't take their personal situation and circumstances into account.
Okay, right, yeah. Gosh, well, that's astounding, yeah. Now, the other one is bullying.
Yeah, so bullying's another, it's another area of high concern at the moment. And it's a word that gets bandied around by a lot of employees. And a lot of employees confuse bullying with an employer directing them to do certain things. So an employer's got every right to give a lawful and reasonable instruction to an employee, and they need to do it. Yeah. A lot of the time though, these days, employees will turn around, oh, well, no, you're bullying me. You can't tell me to do that. That's not right at all. However, you still need to handle the situation in a very considered and measured way.
Right. So you're saying pretty much that if you own a business, you're going to be easily cast as the bad guy pretty much most of the time.
Absolutely.
And if you don't protect yourself, you're nuts.
Absolutely.
Wow. And you know, I must say that over the years I've run a few businesses myself. They've been advertising or marketing businesses, that's what I'm into. And yeah, whenever I've had more than 15 or 20 staff, and that has been the case on occasions, I've been really quite worried. Now, I was never protected like this, and I never even thought about it, getting protection, but I was still worried. So if you fall into my category where you're worried, but you're not doing anything about it, then you're a bit silly like I was, or like I have been over the years. I mean, these days I don't have a lot of staff. I run a pretty small ship, but you know, if I had staff, I would be making sure that I'd be talking to someone like you pretty quickly. Now, the reason that Ed knows so much about this is because of his background. And no, Ed was not a butcher, not a car mechanic, and I don't think he's done any landscaping. So can you just tell us a bit about your background?
Yeah, sure. So I've got a legal degree from the University of Sydney, and I previously worked for a leading employment law firm in Sydney before starting this business now. And the clients I've worked for previously are big clients such as Boral, Coca-Cola, Cochlear, Reserve Bank of Australia, and generally their HR advisors, they would be coming to me for advice.
Gotcha. I've heard of that Coca-Cola, I've heard of them.
Yeah, small company.
So you can see that if you were to use this guy's advice, you're in pretty good hands because he's been around the block a few times and he's dealt with some pretty big businesses. Ed, can I probably wind up by asking you, in terms of business owners who might be doing a few $100,000 turnover up to millions of dollars worth of turnover, what sort of staff level would they need to have to be worried about this? I mean, would it be someone that's just basically got one or two staff, it's the girl at the reception desk and someone you think, oh, well, look, you know, don't worry about it. Is there a number that you go, okay, that's where you should start worrying?
It's a very good question. I think if you've got any staff at all, even one, or if you've even got any contractors that you use, you need some level of protection. Okay. Now, you might not need the absolute yearly membership offering that I do, but the lower level templates, you should absolutely have those.
And we're talking, you can press the button, click the buttons below to determine, what sort of options you might be interested in. And there is it's not called bronze, silver, gold, but that's essentially you've got 3 options. But we're talking about the lowest option just being hundreds of dollars that people can actually invest to protect themselves with a template. And then if they want more of your expertise and customization and all that sort of stuff, they just pay a few more dollars for obvious reasons. So if you want to find out more about Ed Services and protect yourself against all of this sort of stuff, then click the button below. But not just yet, let us finish. Now, there was one thing that you mentioned then that we haven't brought up, and that is contractors. So how does a business owner need to protect himself against contractors? What do you mean? Don't they have their own insurance?
They have their own insurance, but contractors can still make all the same types of claims against a business owner, generally as employees. The main type of claim that a contractor will make is that they weren't actually a contractor, they were an employee of yours. And you have to be very careful about this, because they can then go back 6 years, and even though you and the contractor agreed that you'd pay them a far highly hourly rate than you would an employee, and it was an all-inclusive rate, they can go back for 6 years and get all their holiday pay, so 4 weeks a year, times 6, that's 24 weeks, all their sick leave, so that's 2 weeks a year, so that's another 12 weeks, all the public holidays, 13 times 6 is whatever, this one's 70, another 71 days, something like that.
By the way, Ed's just highlighting he's not an accountant, okay? He's into law, he's not doing accountancy.
But look, I had a case a couple of years ago, and they were claiming, a contractor was put a case against the business owner and claimed $350,000 in back pay, even though both parties to begin with said, yes, it was a contractual relationship, it wasn't employer-employee, but the court looked behind that and said that the level of control that the employer was exercising over the contractor meant that they were an employee, and there was no discount was made for the fact that they were paid at a highly hourly rate at all. So it was disgraceful. Look, we ended up settling that, and I think we got a pretty good settlement out of it. But if they had wanted to push it, if the other guy's lawyer had wanted to push it, he would have got a sizable amount.
The world's changed, hasn't it? It's just crazy. In my opinion, it's crazy anyway. So therefore, as a business owner, if you use any contractors, you should be just as worried about them suing you as your employees.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. And in the templates, the template package that we have, I've actually got a contractor versus employer, like a little checklist, where you can basically go through, tick off yes and no answers, and it will give you a broad understanding as to whether they're really a contractor or whether maybe they're an employee, and whether you should seek further advice on it.
A lot of this comes back to, it's a bit like the foundations of a house, I guess, when you're building. If you do have the appropriate paperwork completed by the contractor or the employee at the very start of their tenure, then you've certainly ticked off first base anyway, haven't you?
Yep. Okay. And we do have those contractors. Okay.
So you've got all of those templates basically, so therefore if I contacted you and I said, look, I'd like to take the silver package, the one in the middle, whereby you're going to give me the templates, but you're going to customise it for my business, so we've got some involvement from you. Then when I when I get those templated paperwork, I would give that to the contractor, I would give that to the employees and say, knock yourself out, fill that out before you even think about doing anything with me.
Absolutely.
Okay. And that will give me a level of protection that hopefully would let me sleep at night.
That's right.
Yep, okay. Ed, before we wrap up, is there anything at all that you'd like to ask? You can ask me, I'm a relationships expert, if you have any problems at home at all, but no. But you're sitting there going, it's gone downhill now. Yeah. The interviewer has decided that he's funny. It's not funny, we're going to get out of here. Ed, anything just to finish up on before we tell whoever's watching this if they want to protect their backside to click the button below?
Look, I think the way we've done the range of options, so the templates are relatively cheap. As I said, look, it's not going to give you the top level of protection, but it's better than standing there in your underpants. At least you've got something on and you can have a fight about it. Yep. And it's very affordable. And then, if your personal situation demands that you'd like some more involvement from me and some greater protection, we've also got those packages available.
Well, thanks, Ed, for that. And look, if you're a business owner and you are now more interested than ever in protecting your business and protecting yourself against disgruntled employees suing you for unfair dismissal or sexual harassment or bullying, then you might be interested in a free 20 to 30 minute consult call that Ed is offering. Ed, can you tell me about that? Whoever's on the other side of this would be mad if they don't take up this offer. It's a free 20 to 30 minute call with you.
That's right, JD, and it gives me a chance to connect with the employer, to understand the employer's business, to see how they're currently operating, whether they have any current areas of risk, whether they're facing any difficult employee issues at the moment. And look, if everything's hunky-dory and they're not faced with any issues, that's great as well.
Good. Okay.
And we can leave it at that.
Yep. And if, for example, you can see that you can offer value, I guess the purpose of this call is they know where to come and find you if they need some help.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So don't think for a moment that there's going to be any infomercial style sell during this call. Ed's not that sort of guy. He will give you lots of free complimentary tips, advice, and if you wanted to get his help, then you know where he is. Simple as that. Good. Well, thank you very much, Ed. And if you're interested in doing that, then just click the button below and leave your details.